delighted to be here to support your campaign. It absolutely augments what we've been saying for a couple of years, that without bank branches, increasingly in those rural areas and areas of the country which perhaps are more urban deprived, with 5,500 bank branch closures since 2015, 500 more this year, and many more to come. Quite often, post office is the last counter in town. We're the last face-to-face transaction that can be done in any village. And increasingly, small businesses are turning to the post office to bring us their cash, bank it safely and securely into their bank account.
How much cash does the post office handle? And have you seen a drop in that in recent years?
On the contrary, Pip, we've actually seen it grow significantly over the past few years. When COVID struck, I think we and many in the industry thought that cash would start to go down and would probably not recover. We've been proved wrong. And I think two reasons for that. The first is those bank branch closures, which means more people come to the post office. So we've seen the cash in our network grow significantly. Around about 3.5 billion every month is transacted through a post office. And I think the second main cause is the cost of living crisis. More and more, increasingly, families, vulnerable, perhaps more rural citizens who can't get a reliable Wi-Fi signal, perhaps, are returning to cash. Especially because once it's spent, it's spent. It's a very, very controllable budgeting tool. And in hard-pressed times, that's why we're seeing a significant growth in both cash withdrawals as well as I say, those cash deposits back in again.
Yeah, and is there evidence, too, of the demographic being affected? One assumes perhaps it is the older generation that's more comfortable with dealing with cash. And the very important process, I guess, of actually going into a counter and having a transaction with a human individual and maybe, that social support that is there as well.
I think that is hugely important, Mark. Absolutely. I think that face-to-face element, especially if you're a small business and you've worked hard to earn your several £1,000s each week, you probably don't want to go and deposit it into a machine. Increasingly, that may become available over the years to come. But for right now, there is something very reassuring about giving it to somebody, looking at the whites of their eyes, having a conversation about how your business is going this week, and talking to a fellow retailer, and then walking out with a receipt, knowing that your money is safe.
But of course, in many villages, they don't actually have a post office now, do they, Martin? Which, for many people, is just such a crying shame and such a loss.
I think it's worth pointing out that since 2009, our network has been largely stable. We operate about 11,500 branches across the country, pretty much in any village, any small provincial town, and in major towns and locations, there is a post office. And we do have a churn every year, there's no doubt. We are under pressure like never before, commercially, as well as being able to support our postmasters and make a viable living. But every one of myself and my colleagues, we're working hard to make those postmasters be able to stay open on the high street. And with that stability of the network, we are actually the only network that continues to open new branches whenever we can. So if we are forced to close on, we look for a new operator, a new partner who's prepared to take us on in that town.